Call the meeting to order. Called the March 21st meeting of the Reno County Planning Commission to order. Staff, will you please call the roll?
Shortfager.
Here.
Strand. Here. Schaefer.
Here.
Seltzer. Macklin.
Here.
Martin. Here. Gertson.
Here. Welcome, everyone. Starting to feel like spring outside, and that feels good. Hopefully we'll get some rain over the weekend like they're saying. We just were talking about that. Trust that you've had a chance to review your packets, and within those packets were the minutes from our January 18 meeting. Chair will entertain a motion on those.
I move we approve the minutes as presented.
I second that.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor of approval of the January 18 minutes, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Minutes are approved. To ensure the rights of all parties of interest and to provide an opportunity for each party to address the Planning Commission in an orderly manner, the Planning Commission will follow the fact-finding procedure which is outlined on the handout in each chair. Your attention to this procedure is appreciated. If a recommendation is made tonight, that recommendation will be based upon the record of information presented to the Planning Commission. The County Commissioners will not conduct a separate public hearing or accept additional written comments or documents. The County Commissioners will consider written requests for additional public comment or documents based only on valid claims that the public hearing process was incomplete or based on new information which has become available since the public hearing. For purposes of this County Commission policy, a public hearing is considered incomplete only if the Planning Commission failed to follow its procedural guidelines, which resulted in a denial of due process to a party of interest, or if the Planning Commission failed to allow an interested party or an opportunity for public comment. For purposes of the County Commission policy, new information shall pertain only to germane information which did not exist at the time of the public hearing, or which was unknown or could not have been discovered with reasonable diligence. An example may be a traffic study completed after the Planning Commission recommendation. Planning Commission recommendation to the County Commissioners will be accompanied by a summary of proceedings before the Planning Commission at its public hearing, along with a report and recommendations of the County Planner, letters, informal petitions, and other information constituting the record of proceedings provided to the Planning Commission before and during the public hearing. If the Planning Commission makes a recommendation after tonight's public hearing, this case may be presented to the County Commissioners at the next available agenda item with the County Commission meeting. Contact planning staff or visit the website for the County Commissioner agenda items. I'll now formally open the case regarding case number 2023-07, a request by Frederick III and Arlie Craig, applicant, Garber Surveying Service, PA, for a homestead agricultural lot split as provided for under Article 3-106 of the County Subdivision Regulations. The property is zoned agricultural district and located at 2396 West 82nd Avenue, approximately 1/4 mile east of the intersection of West 82nd Avenue and North Pennington Road. Have any of the Planning Commission members had any outside contacts regarding this case?
No.
Do any of the commission members have a conflict of interest on this case?
No.
Will the applicant please come to the podium? Please state the name and address for the record. You have 10 minutes to present your case. Additional time may be allotted to the applicant at the discretion of the chair. Planning Commission members may request clarification at the end of the presentation or may have questions.
Just for correction, Mr. Chairman, it's actually case 2024-01. There was a corrected agenda that was sent to you, not.
Gotcha.
So, just for the record.
2024-01.
Correct.
I'm Brent Garber with Garber Surveying. This is for Frederick Craig at 2396 West 82nd Street. Parceling off approximately 5 acres around the home site, along with an ingress-egress easement back to that site for perpetual easement. This site meets all the requirements for setbacks for water well, lagoon, follows lines of possession, apparent lines of possession, following fences, things like that. I feel like it's pretty straightforward, matching what's existing. Nothing else really proposed at this point, except splitting off that acreage.
Are there any questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you.
I have one question. On the colored map that we got, there's a track number 7.
I think staff can probably help us out with that one.
That's a separate parcel of ground that's not owned by the current owner. That's a separate tract owned by somebody else.
Yeah, I got that. It just seems rather odd to have that sitting there by itself. It doesn't seem like there's any access to it.
There is no access, to other than probably an ingress-egress easement. That was split off prior to the adoption of our current zoning regulations, which required frontage or a homestead lot split. So that's how that parcel got created.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you. Okay, we'll start over here from planning staff.
Mark Bonacci, County Planner. So this is a request for a homestead lot split. This is a type of splitting of a parcel of ground that actually takes your review and recommendation and then Board of County Commissioner approval. Typically, this board doesn't review lot splits. That's usually an administrative job done by me, but this is something that is unique in the fact that this parcel, if approved, will not have any kind of public road frontage here. And so that takes your review and concurrence with permitting the owner to do something like that. So this is under parcel number 8. That is the parcel in consideration, as we just discussed. Parcel 7 is not part of this request. It's a separate parcel. The owner of the property actually owns also parcel 10, and again, not part of this request here. And so you're located just east of Pennington Drive and west 82nd Avenue, so you're within the northern part of the county. Homestead lot split, for you don't know, it permits you to divide off a parcel of ground of between 3 and 7 acres. And what that does is you have a utility and an ingress-egress easement that will serve that parcel of ground out there. The reason this is put in place mainly was because of situations where you have a house that's out in the middle of a large tract of ground and that parcel cannot comply with the current subdivision and zoning regulations. And so this is a special occurrence where this board can review how the parcel is shaped, how the access easement is laid out on the property, and potentially grant approval of that. The bulk of my report really deals with the relevant subdivision and zoning regulations that are relevant to this type of division. With that, you have to have a minimum of 3 acres and a maximum of 7 acres. As you saw, this parcel of ground is approximately 5.03 acres of ground. There's really two different scenarios you can look at in approving a homestead lot split. The first reason is you would be granting a homestead lot split for agricultural purposes, and there is a definition of land that is used for agricultural purposes, and so you would review that to see, is this parcel currently being used for agricultural purposes according to that definition that is included in your staff report. There's no documentation submitted with the application that really show that this parcel is being used for agricultural operations. However, there is a second reason that you can potentially use to grant a homestead lot split, and that would be complying with the ag lot split requirements, but also because of mortgage or lending requirements here. And so that would be the second reason that you could consider granting a parcel with no public road frontage. Looking at some of the pictures, this is a wide-angle view of the actual property. Right there, you cannot see the house from 82nd Avenue. A little bit closer view of the existing house and some of the surrounding outbuildings that he has in place right now. This is the actual driveway to the property. The house that you see in the foreground there, that's going to be the one that is not part of this application. That's that parcel 7. And so you can see the other house is way off in the distance. And then across the street from that driveway is there. So in reviewing this, staff has recommended approval of the request for the homestead lot split. I did attach one condition of approval, and that would be that parcel 2 needs to be recorded at the Register of Deeds office, and then a copy of that deed needs to be submitted to my office. Once I have that, then the homestead lot split would be complete. And so with that, I stand for any questions.
Mark, in 3106, it says that it's for the homestead agricultural lot splits are for property zoned and used as agricultural.
Yes.
So is this used for agricultural purposes? Are they farming or ranching?
That was my question, and so I did not have any kind of documentation to show that it was used for agricultural purposes according to that definition that is in our zoning regulations. And so my approval was really based on the fact that he could be doing this for mortgage purposes, as he kind of stated in his application.
Did they say mortgage purposes in the application? For insurance, liability, tax security, and potential trust assignment. Are any of those mentioned in the regulations?
Not specifically, my interpretation of that would be,
Oh, is insurance in there as well?
Second line at the end, insurance liability, tax security.
All right, but it's in the regulations, that
Well,
insurance is a regulation.
No, I'm sorry, I wouldn't.
I think
Talking about what they
the spirit of financial would have your insurance would be included in that.
Okay, I had one more question for you.
yes.
The 7, 8, 9, and 10, those properties, we had the map back up. So, looking at the parcel IDs, were those all split off from the original number 8 at various times in the last 40 years?
I did not do research on that. The assumption would be,
Because it looks
yeah,
like,
it could have been originally.
yeah, because one's like map ID, you know, the
Right.
big giant long 27 digits. One's property 9 in that section, and then one's 901, 902, and 904 on the parcel ID
Yeah.
numbers.
That's the way they would do that.
Yeah, so that means we've already split this property 1, 2, 3 times.
3
And
times.
we're
yeah.
wanting to do it a 4th time.
Over the years, yeah.
Yeah, since
However,
1986.
Prior regulations did not require, but your summation is correct, though, yes. This would be like a 4th split on that 80. I would say at this point in time, though, then there would be no more splitting of that agricultural ground under the current regulations. The next time that a split would want to occur on that would be a rezone and a plat, and we'd be having a public hearing on that type of situation. So this would be the one-time split, similar to like an agricultural lot split or any other normal split. You're allowed to have one split of the ground, and after that, it's platting and/or rezoning at that time.
So one split after all the other splits?
Yeah, so, yeah, 7, 9, and 10 were prior regulations where we already reviewed that, didn't have any stipulations there. Now we have the different regulations, and so you kind of start over, if you will. It's allowed to have a split there, and then from there, it's locked in at that until you rezone plat. Yeah.
Could you back up to the aerial photograph that you had up before? And
This one or another one?
well, maybe you could just walk over there and point to what we're really talking about here. Realize there's no lines on that, but
So the house and the buildings are here, his lagoon is over here, so we're looking at splitting off a 5-acre tract out in the middle of his property, and then the survey for the easement is essentially his existing driveway that goes down to the road. So if Mr. Craig would ever sell this property, then whoever would purchase it would still have the legal access to cross this person's land, whether it be Mr. Craig or somebody else that owns the existing farm ground. So the easement would follow that existing road that's out there, or driveway. And so we're looking at just splitting off the house, and then obviously the lagoon that goes with the house needs to be on the same parcel of ground. So what you're looking at here is, here's the house on your survey, maybe you could use yours better, and then the lagoon is here. So you're doing a parcel of ground with no public road frontage, but then you have an easement, which is essentially the driveway that goes out. And so that would be the future legal access to that parcel.
The drive is satisfactory for all emergency services.
Private driveway. And we don't get into that, yeah.
Any other questions for staff?
Or maybe help a little bit better. So, existing house, and then the existing lagoon or wastewater system, and so your parcel will be, in there, and then the driveway access to get out to the public road.
is there some special reason it takes on a rather unusual shape, the plot, the 5-some acres?
Pick
Are
up.
you talking about to the south, maybe? Is that, or you in general?
That's to pick up the lagoon on that lower portion, isn't it?
Yeah, the south part is because of the lagoon.
Okay.
When this was drawn, it was a 100-foot setback from the lagoon from a new property line. That has since now changed with the sanitation code, so it could have been shorter, but essentially that's why you have this south part looking like that, because that's where the wastewater system is located for the property.
Okay, I'm satisfied. Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to make a comment on this case?
I would like to just
Okay.
get a little
Hang on just a
clarification.
second. Please come forward to the podium one at a time. State your name and address for the record before commenting. Audience members are only permitted to address the planning commission from the podium. Audience members are permitted only one time at the podium. In interest of time, if you agree with the comments previously made, simply state that you agree with previous comments and then present new information for the planning commission. Statements and questions should only be directed to the planning commission, not the applicant or staff. The planning commission may choose not to answer questions or engage with the public. Questions regarding the application can be asked to the planning commission and answered by the applicant during the rebuttal phase of the public hearing. Thank you for your patience.
Shirley Fief and my husband Steve, we live at 2116 West 82nd, so we would be parcel 9. We own parcel 9. Wayne and Faith White are our neighbors. They are the owners of 11. They're here also. But you said I couldn't ask a clarification question of Mr. Van Auchen.
Address the planning commission and
My question just is, so before any further division or development would occur, after this lot split occurs, that no further split could occur before it would come back to you again, is that correct? Okay.
You want to clarify
Let me
that?
expand.
Yes, please.
Yeah, so the property is zoned agricultural, as you can see. So current regulations are, it's a 40-acre required minimum parcel size. And so if Mr. Craig would have desire to split that into another parcel of ground, then yes, he would have to petition to rezone and actually create a subdivision plat under the current regulations.
Okay.
Now, once this house, if it is approved, is split off, now you're dealing with vacant ground, and so Mr. Craig could put a second house on that vacant ground out there. But as far as creating different parcels of ground, no more at that point. So you could potentially have another house out there if he so desires, but as far as other divisions of ground, no.
Okay, so he
Unless
could-
you rezone and plat. I don't want to say definitely no, there's a process to do it if he so chooses to.
he could build without notifying anyone.
He could build another home on that vacant ground, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And I just want to clarify, I believe number 10 is 18 acres of ground that there is a restriction of a warranty deed. And I believe that's why it's cut off as it is. I'm not 100% on that. But back history is Connie Dillon, originally Folks, sold those 18 acres to us. But then when the property, she decided to sell the property, the prospective buyer wanted only to buy it if they could get that 18 acres back. We agreed to sell it back to Mrs. Folks, but there was a restriction placed on the warranty deed, and that deed was filed stating that those 18 acres could have no development or any kind of building or any structure built on it until my husband and I would either die or move off the property. I believe Mr. Vanachin has a copy of that.
Yes, I do.
So we just wanted to make sure that Mr. Craig was aware of that restriction to the deed. And that's all I have, unless you have any questions for me.
Questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other comments? Does the applicant wish to, oh, one more?
Yeah,
Gotcha.
I'll wait if you have some questions for me. Okay, so, a couple things.
What's your name and?
Oh, I'm sorry, it's Frederick Craig,
So,
and the address is 2396 West 82nd. So, first off, we don't have a mortgage on this property. Second of all, the main reason that I, kind of went down this path was I really wanted to have some security for the ag side of it, which I do farming there, I do some ranching there. Mr. Vanachin really didn't ask me to provide that kind of information to him, so, and we have a couple of ag buildings also, so there's actually 3 ag buildings there. So, the biggest problem is that if something were to happen to me, my family would be under a pretty heavy tax liability for the whole property, okay? And I'm not sure why the house wasn't split off on a smaller parcel a long time ago. I don't know why. The house sits on 53 acres, which is kind of unusual these days. So, for more of a tax liability issue, if something were to happen to me, that's the biggest reason why I went down this path. It's just the only reason. It had nothing to do with even really needing to split anything up other than if something happened to me and my wife could not pay the taxes, the liability is primarily on the home. I mean, by a vast majority. So I think that's, about as simple as I could put it. And I didn't know if you had any questions for me or. I wasn't aware of a deed issue on the parcel 10. obviously didn't tell us that when we bought the place, so. But that's okay. There was no intention of anything happening with that parcel with us anyway, so. As far as that goes, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Does the applicant wish to rebut any of the statements?
I just wanted to say that we won't have any problems with filing the new legal description and the easement at the Register of Deeds and providing the copy to the planning department when that's complete as well. We can comply with that.
Staff, do you have anything additional?
This application was submitted way back in August of last year, as you may have noticed on that, and it was delayed because of the fact that we were directed to develop solar regulations. And so at the time that this petition was being formulated and submitted, I was visiting with representatives of Garber Survey, and I had asked them at that time that I needed to know, is this property being used for agricultural purposes, because that's one of the main reasons why we would allow a homestead lot split. So that was communicated to the owner's representatives that I was dealing with here. And secondly, there are some other agricultural buildings out there that don't currently have permits, and so I'll be working with Mr. Craig to acquire those permits as well. Thank you.
Does the commission have any other additional questions for applicant or staff? Okay, the public hearing is now closed. Acceptance or denial of the request may be based on the finding that proper notice was provided to the public. The public will suffer no loss or inconvenience, or other than no private rights will be injured or endangered. At this time, the planning commission can discuss this case and ask procedural questions of staff only. Are there any further discussion questions?
I guess I'd just like to hear again, Mark, what you said about the ability to build another home on this property, just because there's neighbors in the room, and I'm a little fuzzy on why that is. Is it just on the remaining acreage?
It's on the remaining acreage, and so minimum parcel size is 40 acres in the agricultural district. This is obviously greater than 40 acre parcel of ground, and so with parcels of land that are 40 acres or more, you're permitted one agricultural lot split on the property. Multiple splits of the property would require rezoning and plating, and so this would be his one-time split of that property on that house. So then, the standard that was set by this board many years ago was 2 houses per 40 acres without rezoning and plating. And so then, once this is split and recorded, it becomes a separate parcel. So now you're dealing with, I don't have it right in front of me here, the acreage here that you would have left over, but
48 acres.
48, yeah, thank you. Yeah, so 48 acres of vacant ground. And so then he would be able to utilize that vacant ground for another house, so if he chooses to do that. After that, you're at your minimum 2 houses per 40 in the ag district. And so if you want other houses out there, it's a rezone, it's a plat, it's development of a public road to be able to serve the rest of those new lots. And it'd be obviously a public hearing. Be a public hearing for the rezone. It would be, if that's approved, then it would be a public hearing for the preliminary plat. I don't know if that's his intention, but that's what the regs would allow. We would not allow another split of less than 40 acres on that tract of ground right now.
Thank you. Any other discussion? If none, the chair will entertain a motion on this case.
Mr. Chairman, I will make that motion. I move that case number 2024-01, the request by Frederick and Arlie Craig, requesting a homestead agricultural lot split as per Article 3-106 of the Reno County subdivision regulations to permit the existing single-family dwelling located at 2396 West 82nd Avenue be split off into a separate deeded parcel as per the submitted site plan, be approved based upon the application complying with the subdivision regulation requirements and for the reasons stated in the staff report and heard at this public hearing.
Second the motion.
Okay, been moved and seconded. Discussion?
Did we have the stipulation that it be filed with?
We have an addition to that motion.
Or did you want to admit that?
I didn't quite make it there.
Didn't quite make it there. Would you?
Keep reading, Carl.
Do I need to amend my motion?
Your motion, yes.
Yes.
Okay, I would move to amend my motion by saying, I further move to attach the following condition of approval to this application. Number one, the approved legal description and ingress-egress easement for parcel 2 shall be filed at the Reno County Register of Deeds. A copy of the recorded deed shall be submitted to the planning department.
Okay, do we have a second on that amendment?
Second.
Any discussion on the amendment? All in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, so we have a larger, more updated motion that we've moved and seconded on. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, staff call the roll.
Shortfager,
Yes.
Strand,
Yes.
Schaefer,
Yes.
Seltzer,
Yes.
Macklin,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Gertson.
Yes. We'll move on to case 2024-02. I'll just remind the audience that the instructions that were read and prior to the previous case still stand. I'll now formally open the public hearing regarding case number 2024-02. I have a request by the Wee Wee Family Trust and Adam and Leah Eckler to vacate all that portion of Gill Court lying adjacent to lots 29 through 36 inclusive and being west of the western right-of-way of Walker Road in the Shell Walk Lakers subdivision. Do any planning commissioners, have the planning commissioners had any previous contact with this case?
No.
Any conflict of interest with this case?
No.
No.
Okay, will the applicant please come to the podium, state the name and address? For the record, you have 10 minutes to present your case. Additional time may be allotted to the applicant at the discretion of the chair. Planning commission members may request clarification at the end of the presentation.
You want me to speak?
Yeah, if you want to, you may, on your behalf.
I get up, I can get up. I should be home watching basketball game by now.
We'll get you home quick.
Well, I'm Carl Wee Wee, the boss and the owner of the family Wee Wee Trust. And on this here cul-de-sac, it's just been sitting there dead. And according to Mark, township actually has the right-of-way to it. But the township don't want it, and Adam's got the lot over there. And I'm cleaning up all my, rest of my lots and properties. So we agreed on this division that they got the picture of. And it's just a giddy up go deal. So,
Board have any questions for the applicant?
So the lot that's left there in the corner,
yeah.
Could be
I-
accessed
I
from
still-
Yoder
I-
Road?
yeah. We put a culvert, right, you can see the drive, I believe.
oh, okay,
Yeah, off of Yoder Road.
okay.
And they put their drive in up there, you can see that. If you- That's a new construction house, it's just being finished up. But yeah, there's no dead spot that, that one time they had these lots real small. And we changed them to a larger portion in the development. So that's what we're wanting to do with it, and don't think there should be any problem. According to Mark.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thanks, Carl. At this time, we'll hear from staff.
Well, we've done a few of these in the past. They've been utility easement vacation. This is actually a road vacation, and you're looking at a smaller version of Shell Walk Lakers subdivision. And a little bit of a clarification on what Mr. Weeby said. The lots are still small. You're still looking at multiple lots, 35, 34, 33, 32, and so on, because it hasn't been replatted. Now, what you're looking at here is they've been combined for taxing purposes, and so that's why they look like they're larger lots, but in reality, they're still the small lots out there, okay? And so we're looking at getting rid of Gill Court and doing away with that road right-of-way. There have been no utilities that have been identified as being within this road here. For those of you who don't know, Shell Walk Lake is looking on the west side of the lake, kind of toward the south end of the county. You're looking at Maple Grove and then Yoder Road. As you can see, there are, a major road that goes in here and one that goes to the north, and then Yoder Road is the section line road that terminates a little bit to the north of that subdivision. So Shell Walk Lakers is about 41 lots. I think that's what I said in my report. The majority of it is all zone R3, which is our single-family residential zoning district here. The large lot, 18, is actually zone R1, which is a 3-acre minimum zoning district. So 3 things that the planning commission needs to review when you're looking at a road vacation is that proper notice was provided to the public. The public will suffer no loss or inconvenience by such vacation, and that no private rights will be injured or endangered by road vacation here. I can tell you that both owners, Mr. Weeby and then the gentleman that owns this lot up here, as you can see, this is a more updated aerial, but he's building a new house on multiple lots that he purchased a few years ago here. So both of them have been notified, they both signed the petition, and I'd like to point out as well, though, that I had told both of them that they need to realize that if the road is vacated, that these interior lots that don't have direct frontage onto Yoder Road, they will not be able to build on those individual lots, because they will lose their road frontage. Okay, so there be a lot of them, though, will have Yoder Road as their only access, and so they were made aware of that type of situation that could occur if we choose to go ahead and vacate that road right away. Notice was sent to several energy companies, including Art Valley, Black Hills, Ideatech, and AT&T, and nobody responded with any kind of concerns about the need to have that road right of way there. This road, as you can see, also does not lead to Yoder Road, so we're not really cutting anybody off or like another access out of that subdivision should, a need occur, like say fire, for example. We didn't have any other response from anybody from the public from the notice that was published in the paper as well. We were required to publish it in the paper at least 20 days in advance, and so nobody responded that way. I think I would stand on my staff report really, and staff has recommended approval of the road vacation. So this is a picture of actually what it looks like out there. Now, it's not the greatest one, but I pulled it off of Google Earth. You can see Mr. Eckler's house under construction. You can see there's nothing out there, and this is from 2023, so it's a fairly current area here. You can see some people are probably using it as a shortcut to get out to Yoder Road, but it's actually, there is no road right of way right there. So,
Mark, didn't we do a variance on something out here?
not a variance, it was, yeah, on Mr. Eckler, if you recall, yeah.
You did something.
I didn't mention it, but yeah, since you brought it up, Mr. Martin, yeah, a few years ago, I think it was by Zoom when we did it, we were looking at a special exception to allow Mr. Eckler to build a shed on his property prior to construction of a house.
Okay.
That was denied by this board, and so he came in, and that's actually his house foundation right there, but yeah, so good memory.
So when this, assuming this is vacated, do all of the lot lines just converge as they are? I mean, what happens to the vacated property?
So we're just vacating the road right of way. It would be a private agreement between all the landowners on how the road right of way gets divided up from there. Yeah, they would merge together, so they would look like this or like this. You're not going to have that gap in there anymore. But how it gets divided, that's really not of my concern or your concern, really. We're just looking at vacating the road right of way so a public road can't be constructed. And I don't know, it's like Mr. Weeby could probably speak to it. It's my understanding that they've come to an agreement on how that's going to be divided up, but really it's not of my concern or this board's concern, really. But yeah, the lines will merge together at that point. Usually you think of it as being 50-50. You'd be dividing it 50-50, but yeah, you have a cul-de-sac involved, so I don't know how that would work, but yeah.
Any other questions for staff? Thank you, Mark. Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to comment on this case? I don't see anyone who wants to comment, so do you have anything more to add?
No, not really. I mean, we got a contract on the other parcel. It's signed contract for the whole deal, so there won't be no more houses but one on the south side and Erker on the north. And we agreed on how we're splitting it, and Garber's gonna take care of it.
Staff, do you have any additional comments?
I do not, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Does this commission have any other questions for applicant or staff? Public hearing is now closed. Acceptance or denial of the vacation request must be based on the finding that proper notice was provided to the public. The public will suffer no loss or inconvenience by such vacation, and no private rights will be injured or endangered. This is the time the Planning Commission can discuss this case and ask procedural questions of staff only. Is there any other further discussion by this commission? No. If none, Chair will entertain a motion on this case.
Mr. Chairman, I move that case number 2024-02, the request by Carl Wewe and Adam Eckler, requesting all of Gill Court described as lying directly adjacent to lots 29 through 36, inclusive and being west of the western right-of-way of Walker Road be vacated as described in the legal description and petition, finding that proper notice has been given, the public will suffer no loss or inconvenience by the vacation, and no private rights will be injured or endangered, based on the reasons listed in the staff report as heard at this public hearing.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, staff, please call the roll.
Shortfire,
Yes.
Strand,
Yes.
Schaefer,
Yes.
Seltzer,
Yes.
Macklin,
Yes,
Martin,
Yes.
and Gertson.
Yes. Go watch your basketball, Mr. Weaver.
I'm gonna check out. You guys have a nice evening.
Okay.
Who's betting money on KU? Anybody?
Well, I don't usually root for the Jayhawks, but I'm for Kansas in this case. How does that sound?
You're on Kansas tonight. We'll go see. I got one boy not gonna be there, so it'll be a tough one. Have a good evening.
Thanks.
Okay. Next item of business is letter C, discussion and possible action on revisions on the draft Article 25 Solar Energy System Regulations. This was referred back to us by the Board of County Commissioners from the March 13 meeting. Staff, would you like to give us a little background on what you've given us to review?
Sure, so for those of you maybe didn't know or didn't watch the video and the presentation, the solar regulations that you recommended approval from back in February was placed on that agenda, and we had a pretty lengthy discussion with the county commissioners on what you are recommending to them. And out of that, to summarize, is there were 5 points that the county commissioners would like this board to further discuss and/or refine or bring them back some additional information. Those 5 points are listed in your little memo that I provided this board. I don't probably need to read it, right now, but we can certainly discuss each one. And so, really, at this point in time, though, the board has several options. You can review these 5. You can make modifications, changes to those sections and those sections only right now. You can choose to leave it alone in its entirety. You can choose to, say that we think this is a good document and send it right back to them, in which case then they can make changes from that. You can leave some of them alone and change other ones if you want. So you have several different, options available to you on this. And staff is really here to help answer, any questions, but I think it's really, this board's decision, and I can provide, some maybe additional background, so can Dawn on what was discussed and what they're looking for.
Okay, so for our discussion, I believe we'll just start down the list. I'm sure everyone has had a chance to review this because it was in your packets. I think we'll just start with number 1, go through 5. We'll discuss as we go. I believe you also gave us the draft regulations with the highlighted areas. Is that correct?
Yes, in your packet, you should have received a copy of the recommended approval of the solar regulations. Then I also gave you a copy of the City of Wichita letter that was sent on November the 9th of last year, because that was specifically referenced at the meeting by the county commissioners, so you can see what they are referring to when they're talking about, especially number 1 and the industrial pollutants. So the areas highlighted in yellow were, I believe, what sections pertain to what the memo is written about.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I'll just start off with number 1. I appreciate the concern for the industrial, for the potential for the industrial pollutants. as I read this, it still echoed in my ears what Alan had found with the solar farm that had its storm damage up in Nebraska, that really there was only superficial damage to the solar panels, and there wasn't any interior damage to them as they were doing their cleanup. So I don't know. I guess my opinion is we've covered it enough. I think I'm satisfied with what we have in our regulations, but I by no means want to dictate what this board has in mind or what its wishes
I
are.
agree with that conclusion also.
Yeah, I mean, we've discussed this, during our debates on these regulations, and I was one kind of pushing for something on this thing, and the more I've delved into it, the less I'm pushing on it, let's put it that way. Because I haven't been able really to find any evidential documentary information that, comes out and says, yes, there is a risk to the environment from these solar panels. Everything I've found is more concerned about runoff from the panels rather than pollution,
Right.
heavy metals or anything like that going into the soil. Of course, you have the battery thing, we'll discuss that later, but, that's another source of potential pollution.
Well, something I've been trying to keep in mind that, our scale from when we started this process to where we are now, the scale was 100 times what we're talking about today. And so I think the impact size, I appreciate the feedback that the city of Wichita had. I think that's been very important and very valuable to keep in mind. But I keep reminding myself that really we're talking about a 1% size project versus our original focus. And so I think I'm comfortable with this portion of the regulations as they are.
I'm going to agree with Steve on information that's out there. I can find no credible information that says there is a problem. I have credible information that says there is not a problem. And I forwarded some articles to Mark if anybody is interested in reading those that describe the makeup of the panels, what they contain, the remoteness of a problem emerging comes down to actually grinding up the panels and breathing the dust. So they're good articles, and they broaden the scope that says, okay, even if there is some contamination, it's far less than what the current oil and gas industry is producing. So the more solar generation that's turned on actually reduces harmful output from what we're doing now. So even if there is something, it's far less than what we're doing now. So it's just it's more than incremental improvement, it's improvement. So if anybody's interested, I guess let Mark know and he can send those to you. I too appreciate the city of Wichita protecting their water. I think we all need to protect our water. But I'm a little interested in, and maybe they send this same letter to other activities. I listed out 10 things that I think are more dangerous to their water supply than solar panels. And I don't know if those 10 areas got similar letters or not, or if they're just things that are out there now and we accept them as normal and we're not worried about them. Such as, I know Cheney Watershed is concerned about agricultural runoff, but, just the suburban encroachment into the Cheney Watershed, private septic systems, buried fiber cable. Do we know what's in the cables? I mean, it's the same mindset as far as some of the concerns that are floating around solar panels. The the one that really gets me is the number of buried pipelines going through that watershed. And why there isn't concern about those, I don't know. Maybe there is, and I just don't know about them. But that seems to be a list that I can't put any perceived jeopardy from especially limited scale solar into the same category as some of the other threats that I have listed. So I'm fine with what we have. I guess that's my short answer.
Appreciate that.
I'm fine with what we've got. I think we've studied this thing. Don't see a real threat there.
Okay. Kayla?
I feel the same.
Okay. So it sounds like we're in consensus. Number one stays as written, or as presented. Number two, which would, it's going to, one of the commissioners, the county commission is wanting us to address the battery storage systems.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I think I led the charge back when we were charged with the responsibility of developing the guidelines for commercial, large-scale. I led the charge that if we're going to do that, we need to also have some guidelines in there relative to batteries, because I was a strong believer that anybody who wants to put in a big system like that, big solar system, they will probably want to put batteries in there so that they can extend the period of time that the electricity comes out of that set of solar cells, clear into after the sun goes down, and using batteries to do that. I led that charge to making sure, and we did a good job of including that. But since that time, and now that I think about these limited scale things, I am also convinced that none of these 10-acre plots or 2-megawatt plots, they're not going to find it economical to also include batteries as a part of that system. So I recommend that we just eliminate any possibility of any batteries being in these limited scale projects. And therefore, I'd almost to the point that I'm almost ready to recommend that we ask Mark to move, that Mark remove all the language from our guidelines that has anything to do with batteries for those limited scale solar systems.
So would that include the words prohibit?
Yeah,
Okay.
it would. Yeah, because I don't see in my 50 years in the industry, I don't see that ever being economically feasible for a 2-megawatt, 10-acre plot ever being justified an additional investment for batteries, recognizing to meet any sort of guidelines we give them would add lots to their cost.
I would disagree with that. I think it's that we owe it to those who are making this investment to decide what's feasible for their investment and what is not. I thought the answer to the battery storage system was our number 8 on page 25-7. It says, all battery storage systems shall comply with the requirements of the National Fire Protection Association. The commission got into discussions about, well, what kind of, you don't say anything about what kind of building it has to be. And we had that discussion, and we decided, well, we're not really qualified to make those mandates about how thick the walls need to be or what the material needs to be. But we did rely on the National Fire Protection Association. That's my memory.
Yeah, I think that's right, as I recall too, Garth. I guess the question I have, do those national standards have a provision for building type, this type construction, this type of thing? 'Cause, I mean, wood frame building is not, to me, would not be satisfactory. You need something that's non-combustible, such as concrete block or something.
So what is our purpose of requiring a building? Is it protection from burglary or access, protection from the elements, or protection from fire?
Depending on the battery makeup, the biggest risk is when it goes through its cycle and it has been damaged somewhere in its transportation or installation. That's where the flaws show up, and that's when you have events. So I don't, I'm kind of agreeing with Harley. I see where you're going, Garth, where we need to let the applicant decide what's feasible and what's not. But it would allow us some it would draw a line in the sand if we said just not going to have a battery there.
And draw a line, but I guess, instead of jumping in this thing right away, I would say, maybe we should try to talk to, like, the co-ops and see, what their thoughts are in this regard.
And I asked Mark if those people who have been talking to him about, are they thinking about batteries? And it's my understanding they don't even think about that.
Or that's specifically addressed with them, I guess is my question.
Staff, have you had contact with Ark Valley?
I have. So if I may, I contacted Ark Valley and attempted to talk to the two people that are here tonight, but they wasn't there. So I talked to the Director of Operations, Mr. Jim Sherry, and I asked him in this limited scale solar systems that like they install, is there going to be any batteries? And he said no. I said, is there going to be any batteries in the future? And he said no. So I said, anybody outside of Ark Valley that are building these, do you think that there'd ever be the possibility that they would have batteries for battery storage or anything? And he said no. So after hearing that, I was going to want this commission to consider exactly what Harley said. I think that because of that, you need to consider maybe prohibiting battery storage anywhere within a limited scale solar system, and that takes all of this issue of the building out of the picture.
Are we going to prohibit batteries for residential systems?
That's yet to be discussed.
Well, I know that, but it seems like this is a precursor to that, and if you talk to the people at King Solar, and I remember when they applied for their building permit or whatever, part of that reason for that building was to store their inventory of batteries.
Yes.
So the batteries are out there, and
We have it in everything. We've got it on our phone. We have it in our. We have potential in about everything that we come in contact with every day, whether it be a vehicle or a phone or a drill or a clock or what have you. So I think from this limited scale piece of it, I think we can draw a line and say that that we could prohibit it at that level, but then we need to revisit it at a more personal or individual level.
If you look at a lot of the residential systems out there today do have battery storage for the very reason we're talking about, so it can extend the usage of that electricity that's been generated. And it's, but I think it's totally a different economic situation on a personal, solar system versus something we're talking about on a limited scale. There, they'd be requiring a lot bigger, capacity type batteries and whatnot. It's more expense and everything else. And whether it be cost beneficial to do that. Whereas, the technology's there and the application is already there for residential solar battery storage.
Jack, what are you thinking?
I would go with prohibiting them because, and then in the future, 10 or 20 years or something, when we're probably not going to be doing this, If they invent a better battery that makes it feasible for small systems like this, then we can worry about it then.
You know, I'm gonna spin off of that a little bit. You know, because we're prohibiting it in our regulations, doesn't mean that there can't be a provision made when they come for their conditional use permit. So, you know, there's still, we're drawing a line in the sand based upon the regulations, so Mark or staff does not, or the applicant understands, okay, if I cannot have this, but if I approve worth, we can make a concession. So we're not, we are, but we aren't, Garth. Does that make sense? We're telling them no, but we're
not
giving
hell no.
a but. We're no but. You know what I mean saying? You know what I'm saying?
Well, I'm thinking of a kind of an in-between now, and I remember from our previous meetings, the example being like a dairy farm, or, you know, a larger agricultural user who might have grain dryers that they want to run at night. And they might want to have a limited scale system with battery.
And that's
That's
on,
not what this is
and that's
about.
on
That's not what
ag.
these regs cover.
Yeah, we haven't touched those
a private
regulations
system.
yet.
Yeah. That's a private system, not a limited scale. This is for where they're generating electricity to go out to
resale.
their customers, basically. Whereas what you're talking about is somebody who generate for their own use. So it's a personal.
Well, if you can't tell, I have a problem with the prohibit word because it sets a standard, and if we think batteries are dangerous enough to prohibit them, how do we defend putting batteries into another scenario?
I think part of the difference, I think, Garth, is the type of batteries you're looking at in a limited scale, potentially in a limited scale situation versus a business, a personal or business use type thing where you're using it for, generating it for your own use. You know, I think you're not going to look at the size and make up a number of batteries that would be used. My assumption at this point, and you can't ban them because they're already out there. You know, that's what they use in the personal solar systems. Nobody light their houses at night.
Kayla? I see your gears turning over there.
Oh, well,
Not at all. What are your thoughts?
I like Harley's idea to, and when we can always readdress it, like you said, and I think that makes a good option for everybody to address it if they need to.
You want to clarify how that process works, Mark?
You can't prohibit it, can't prohibit battery storage, and then turn around and say, well, we'll consider that as part of a conditional use permit process, okay? That's like a form of contract zoning that's saying, well, I'm going to apply for a variance to put an office building in a residential zoning district. Well, office buildings aren't allowed in a residential zoning district. You have to apply for rezone. So you can't apply for, a conditional use permit that specifically says something is prohibited on a property. Now, you either prohibit it outright, and then this board can decide if battery storage is something they want. They can either do it through a variance process, or you can say, we will consider battery storage on a property with a conditional use permit. And so as part of the application with the conditional use permit, like in the regs, you would say that, if battery storage is desired, that needs to be made a part of the conditional use permit process, or can be approved through the conditional use permit process. You can't come in and say, we're going to prohibit it, but then we'll allow it with our conditional use permit process.
But we could with a variance.
if this board makes that clear to me, and we can make that clear in the regulation. If you can either handle it through a variance process through the Board of Zoning Appeals, or you can make it through the conditional use permit process through the Planning Commission. Both of them you would be allowed to attach conditions of approval on, so it just depends on how this board would want to handle it. That way, I mean, you're,
Maybe we're overusing the word prohibit.
I mean,
We're just, in my mind, you're just approving a limited solar without battery.
yeah, that's my third. Or, it's like, if you go the variance route, then you're saying, okay, we have to have a conditional use permit to allow that facility, and then they're also gonna be applying for a variance to allow battery storage. So now you're hearing two cases for one topic, so you could handle it
Taking
through.
part of the conditional.
Yeah,
use
you're
process.
paying.
Yeah.
Or consider this as like a third option, and that would be prohibited now, and if technology changes, if staff hears, concerns from the industry that, what battery storage is becoming more efficient, and where we think we want to do this, we do a text amendment. We do a text amendment to the regulations. So if the technology isn't there right now, or the desire isn't there, you prohibit it now, and then if the technology becomes available, or the desire becomes better known, then we get ahead of that somehow, and then we do a text amendment.
Yeah, that's what we call another hearing and everything else too, then, so.
I think me personally, I'd prefer the prohibit now and text amendment after. It's a cleaner process in itself.
So you want to push it on another board, don't you?
Yes, I know, but there's that potential. Yeah. But
In 2 years, though, so
Yeah.
it's still a year.
It could happen in 2 years.
I share some of the same concerns that Garth has raised on the blanket prohibition, but having said that, I think if that's what we need and the utilities and our resident expert is on board with it, and we revisit it in 15 years when this technology is all completely changed, if that's what it takes to get this to move forward, I can get behind that.
Are we ready to make a decision?
So do we need a motion to?
I believe so, and it's going to have to state something with, about Article 25-107, paragraph 8. Whether it's removal or how we need to state that in there, whether battery storage is prohibited within a limited scale.
I think it needs to be, specified.
Okay.
If we want to, we can't just be silent on it.
No, well,
I was
I
just
think
saying,
so.
if we just eliminate it, it's gonna bounce back to us
Yeah.
next month.
So we need to have, let's just say in bold, it says battery energy storage system. Then the next sentence says all battery energy storage systems are prohibited in a
Or
limited scale.
solar
Yeah.
system are prohibited, period.
Yep.
Does that work, Mark?
No, so say it again now.
Okay. Battery energy storage systems are prohibited in all limited scale.
Are you talking about letter A, or you?
8.
No,
Or you're
we're
talking
just-
about-
we just want to basically clear all of number 8
Just
out.
delete
and then
everything on
just-
8.
Then just put a sentence on and with number 8.
Leave the title.
In the title.
Leave the
Yeah.
title.
Leave the title and just say all battery systems.
Then
Yes.
the text of that section would be all
All battery
battery
energy
storage,
Yeah.
systems are in a
Shall.
limited scale.
shall be prohibited.
Limited scale solar systems shall be prohibited, period. Yeah.
I think we need do we need a motion for that?
I want to get, shall be prohibited within a
Limited scale
Solar system.
solar conversion system.
Commercial, does commercial need to be in there?
Limited scale.
What do we call this?
limited scale commercial, yeah.
Yep.
Limited scale commercial energy system.
All right.
Committee motion.
It was kind of, we're waiting for Mark to read that back to us, and then we'll determine.
So my understanding is, essentially, A, B, C, and D is going to be eliminated. You're going to have one sentence in here that says, number 8, battery energy storage system, and then after that, we're going to have all battery energy storage systems shall be prohibited within a limited scale commercial solar system.
Yep. Okay.
And I would so move that, if we need a motion to do that.
Yes, you do.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Yes.
Who seconded it?
Steve?
Is there any in between the previous conversation about asking for a variance or whatever that process would be? Because I'm really disturbed by this prohibition and the message that sends about all things battery, about the appetite for Reno County to encourage an investment by outside developers. So I understand I kind of understand the concern about battery storage, but I would like to have at least something that says, but under the right conditions, we can work with you.
As it's written, there is no opportunity, there's no variance, there's no adding it to a conditional use permit. It says it's strictly prohibited. You cannot do it.
To do what you're suggesting, they'd have to revise that, the wording on there, and strike the word prohibited, and somehow come up with some other language, I think, that would allow it to be a part of the conditional use process. You know, so it's kind of negotiated in that part. If it was desired, it could be developed through the conditional use process, permit process. You know, so I mean, it just makes it a little more muddier.
With that, we're just kicking the can down the road. Really, truly. What we're saying by doing that is we're saying, well, as much information as we put together now, we don't know, we're stopping in our research. We're just saying, hey, let's just figure this out some other time. It's like we're sweeping under the rug if we allow it to be placed in a conditional use permit setting. If we say prohibit, okay, we've made a decision. We drew a line in the sand. With a text amendment process, we can then do a deeper dive. We're going to be going through probably a deeper dive than what we would in a normal conditional use permit setting to change the text in the regulations, is my opinion. I just see, through the conditional use process, I see us maybe not that we don't do our due diligence. I just think when we do a text amendment, we're diving a lot deeper into the details than what we would in a typical conditional use permit setting. That's where I stand on using the word, as the motion stands, prohibiting, and then addressing it with a text amendment.
But on the flip side, you're also putting the burden on the applicant to come up with a safe battery storage system and prove it to us.
Yep.
Because if not, then we say, no, forget it, you know, can't have it. So, you know, we got that flexibility. But, I mean, what we're proposing, prohibit, yeah, that's cut and dried and clean. The other thing is that if we kick a can down the road, as you say, and then 5-10 years from now, we say, whoops, we need to amend this. We have a text amendment, well, you know how that works. That's going to take a period of several months to get that in. So hopefully it's not a situation that you get, it's a more urgent issue. You know. I'm fine either way, really, you know, see, putting it in a conditional use permit negotiation type thing, or just say, forget it. But,
Any other discussion on the motion? Okay, staff call the roll, please.
To clarify, the motion is to prohibit
Yes.
with no other language added.
Schwertfeger,
Yes.
Strand,
No.
Schaefer,
Yes.
Seltzer,
yes.
Macklin,
Yes,
Martin,
Yes.
Gertson.
Yes. Okay, the next article is 25-108, paragraph 9. It addresses the noise. Our discussion is to just determine whether maximum noise level on the outer wall of a non-participating landowner's principal building should be changed to 40 decibels rather than the 60 decibels that we have written in the draft regulations.
Mark, do you have any information as to what the noise levels generated by a solar system this size might be?
I don't have that information, but Mr. Seltzer, I do have what other counties have. I was asked that question at the county commission meeting, and I did not have that information at my fingertips, but I do have what the other county regulations surrounding it that I pulled do, and so I could read those for the board if you'd like. Kingman did not have anything. Harvey County had 45 at the property line. Butler has 60 at the project boundary or a proposed residence. Douglas has 60 at the property line or 500 feet from a residence. Marion does not have anything, and Russell County does not have any noise requirement. And that's based off the information that I downloaded when we first started this project.
In my understanding of the noise generated from solar systems is a lot of that comes from the inverters and whatnot, which would, I think, tie into your batteries, right? Am I right on that?
well, in reality, I don't view it anything except a substation. You go find an electrical substation and you'll stand close to it and you listen real close and it's gonna be, it's not gonna be very loud. As I listened to the commission debate on this subject, I thought, my goodness, in the room that they're in, it's way above 60.
That's correct.
And even one of the commissioners guessed, referencing the fact that an outside air conditioning unit makes a lot more noise than 60. And they're at everybody's home. And so I'm satisfied with 60, and just like we have it written. Even though I know that one of the commissioners wanted us to consider that, but
I went out to the little 10-acre one that's out in my neighborhood in Huntsville, and the warmest day of the year, mid-afternoon, max sun, and I made a phone call right next to the fence, right next to whatever electronic equipment, because I'm not that kind of person. I don't know what I'm looking at. And I made a phone call, and the person on the other side couldn't hear it. So
they couldn't hear it or couldn't hear you.
they couldn't hear it. They didn't want to hear me.
It was less than a whisper.
Yeah.
It was, I don't know, like a window AC if you're in the house.
Right.
But that was right next to the fence on the warmest, sunniest day of the last 6 months. In worst case scenario, it's not something.
I
And
guess.
so we're talking 60 decibels at a non-participating principal building. So okay, if they can hear a conversation, you know, a very low volume conversation from that far away, it's a very quiet night. So
I don't know, I've heard parties from
yeah.
almost a mile away.
Yeah, but that's.
They're a
I
lot
think
louder
I
than
think
a
we can crank
substation.
up the level just a little bit there.
I went out to Huntsville too, and you'd shut off the engine, roll down the windows, tell the dog to be quiet, and I could hear a hum.
But you were right on the road.
Yeah,
If somebody puts a pump jack, drills an oil well, puts a pump jack on it 500 feet from my house, are there any decibel restrictions on that?
No.
Nor irrigation motor. nor-
Irrigation motors?
Yep, none of that. So this 60 decibel is, in my mind, is adequate completely.
And I agree, 100%. 60 is,
Are we?
yeah,
Are
leave
we?
it alone.
Leave it
at
alone?
60.
Are we all in agreement there?
Good,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Item number 4, Article 25-105, paragraph 2, and 25-108, paragraph 1, circumstances requiring application of a limited scale commercial solar energy system. It has to do with basically clarifying language that whether or not a new construction can go within 2 miles of an existing. They want some clarification there. I don't know, Mark, Don, do you want to clarify how it was interpreted by county attorney?
Go ahead and you start.
Yeah, how, the question was, can a new facility be built within 2 miles of an existing one? And so we need clarification of that, and what I understand it, and for you guys to determine whether we're wrong or right, is that no, a new facility, a new permit for a new facility can't be built within 2 miles of an existing facility. And that doesn't put any burden on the new regulations on the grandfathered existing system. We're talking about a new build. So anywhere within the county that you have jurisdiction over on regulations, 2 of these can't be within each other. Now, also, that doesn't mean that there can't be a solar system built in somebody's ETJ, and they can build that within one that's outside of the ETJ, or we could build one within 2 miles of that. You're regulating what's built in your jurisdiction outside of an ETJ, and there can't be 2 within 2 miles of each other, period. Is that what you guys think too?
I was there and I thought the commissioners were I didn't think they read it right. It seems very clear to me that a new facility can't be within 2 miles of another one, whether it's old or new.
I think I muddied the water on that, and I'll take that hit. You know, I think I was, for whatever reason in my mind, I think I was looking at an ETJ or a city versus something out in the county. And so I think I got the ball started on the wrong foot there with the commission, and so I'll own that and stuff. And so, but I think we just need to make sure, it was an official request, but then we need to make sure, is the language clear in your mind what we're dealing with?
We're talking about just 2 facilities that are within our jurisdiction. Now, if the city puts one in their ETJ or whatever, we could come in and they could put one right next door.
That's correct.
If they want to, correct? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, if Huntsville, for example, was in our jurisdiction, we would have to stay 2 miles away from that complex.
Well, I think this all came about is with Evergy and the ground they have around their power plant up there, if they should ever want to develop that into solar, you know. But that's outside our jurisdiction.
I think
Well, that's in our jurisdiction.
No, not that one, but yeah.
But like the existing solar outside of South Hutch, that's in their ETJ.
That's in their
correct?
ETJ.
So what happens there is none of our business.
Right. But like the one that was approved several years ago up in the Medora area,
That is. right.
that is in our jurisdiction, so now 2 miles away from that.
And this one that's out here in their ETJ, there could be one built in the county within 2 miles of that. but anything within the county under your jurisdiction can't be within 2 miles of each other. Is that the way you understand it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'd say leave it as written.
We can only control what we can control.
Yep. Right. Everybody's good? Okay. We'll go to the last, item number 5, Article 25-107. It's addressing whether or not gravel and rock should be prohibited when limited scale systems are built. You, staff, you want to kind of expand on what kind of the spirit of that?
This is yours.
So early in our development process, I believe it was Commissioner Hirsch requested that we consider an option to allow native grasses to be planted underneath the solar panels, so farmers can use that for grazing if they so choose. And so we incorporated that language, in there, and then I think at the same time, this board and staff, to a certain degree too, concerned about weeds that would potentially grow underneath those panels, and they would not be mowed, sprayed, taken care of. And so we looked at the situation where if there's a bunch of rock in there underneath those panels, and one, the farmer would not be able to use that for grazing purposes, and number two, it could potentially grow into a bunch of weeds and get to the point where you wouldn't be able to see the rock anymore. So we thought, instead of having 8 acres, 10 acres of rock roughly, underneath the solar panels like that, that could also become an issue if one ever gets decommissioned. We would just prohibit rock and gravel underneath them and just stick with strictly native grass. That would hopefully, assist in drainage concerns as well. And so that's what this board ultimately decided to do, is to prohibit rock and gravel under there. The question came up with one commissioner, I believe it's Commissioner Friesen, that thought we should allow rock and gravel to be placed underneath that if a company so chooses to go that route. And so that's really the question before this board is prohibition too strong a word, or should we allow the rock and gravel to be used as an option? I think they were okay with prohibiting asphalt and concrete, and I don't know if that's even an option, but he was okay with that, but the rock, I believe, is what he wanted us to look at as still providing that as an option to an applicant.
I think.
What did we, go ahead, Steve.
I think the native grass is your best option, because, that gives you it helps with the runoff from the panels, because that's gonna be the biggest issue. I think the rain coming down, hitting the panels, getting down on the ground, and, potentially, eroding it, you're gonna have, with the grasses down there and their root structure and whatnot, I think that's gonna help alleviate those issues more than gravel would. When you put gravel down, over time, you're gonna get, it's gonna, water will move rocks.
Right.
And it help if there is any, at all, potential of any pollution of some kind, then I think the native plants would be much better for the filtering system than rock. And, the ones I've seen, predominantly, I think they all have native grass planted under them. There's a huge one out in Colorado I drive by when I go to field trials out there, it's probably a quarter section, it's all got native grass in it.
Maybe our hangup is the word prohibited. Maybe it ought to, if somebody applies for install one of these things, there ought to be more leeway there. If let the applicant, I'm going to jump on Garth's position here, let the applicant tell us what they'd want to do, and then we approve it or disapprove it.
I didn't get very far with my position.
But we listen. We listen.
Thank you.
Mark, do you remember when we approved the one up on the north end of the county, did we put any stipulations about what we wanted underneath it?
No.
I was just reading through it and I had a page that's blank of it in my printer. Print the page
Do you have it there? As I recall, no.
I don't see it.
If it would be, it'd be in the conditions of approval.
There isn't anything in the
Yeah,
conditions.
I don't think, yeah, I didn't think we did.
I'm still very much in favor of having native grasses down there.
But if we took that whole sentence out of there, it says, the utilization of gravel, rock, or other impervious material beneath the solar panel is prohibited. We just took that sentence out of there, it still reads pretty well. Supporting grass and,
It's supporting like our goal of encouraging native grass and other uses commingled, whether the applicant wants to do that, we have that option. But as you're saying, we're not making a blanket prohibition, we're not telling a private entity, you have to do X with your private property. So
Right.
I think one issue with Commissioner Friesen is where you consider rock is impermeable, and you could say that with asphalt or concrete, but I'm not sure that that's totally correct with rock either, so that was a concern of his, where that's not really totally true, and I agree with that. Now, concrete, asphalt, yeah, can't allow that. That's all total runoff.
so what do you all think about just taking out that sentence?
Maybe taking out gravel or gravel, rock, or other, and just put the utilization of impervious material beneath the solar panels is prohibited.
Well, that last sentence is just dealing with the access roads.
Well, I don't know that we're talking about the access
No,
roads.
we're not.
The previous sentence.
Yeah, it's the previous. The utilization of gravel, rock, or other impervious material beneath the solar panels is prohibited.
Yeah. And yeah, I think, I could go along with what you're proposing, Russ.
If we take out gravel or rock or other and
Just
just
say
put
impervious.
impervious, that should, now, does that leave it for interpretation?
Well, clear that
Yeah.
out. Clear that up
Yeah.
out here.
So what's the legal definition of impervious material? What kind of percolation limitation are we saying if we leave that?
Exactly.
But
See,
if we
that's-
leave it in there, someone's gonna have to define it at some point. So I'm leaning towards
Let's just-
Harley's suggestion.
Just take it completely out?
Yeah. And if an applicant shows up and they wanna pave 10 acres, that means, no. I mean, but I don't see that realistically occurring.
So how do
You go in there
we,
with gravel, you put 10 acres of gravel down, then you're gonna have to go through routinely with, some type of herbicide to kill the weeds and everything else, and there you're getting back into,
Now you're back into maintaining it all the time.
maintaining it, and pollution, with putting the herbicides on the ground and whatnot. Whereas your native grasses, if you get a good stand of that, you don't have to do anything to it.
if we take that sentence out that says utilization of gravel or rock, then we need to change the sentence to basically the second sentence. It says the document shall address how the disturbed area will be reseeded or some other sediment control practice utilized. We probably need to figure something, I don't know if we need to rewrite that to read something different.
Well, I think if we're not prescribing or prohibiting something specific, then the document still needs to tell us what's gonna happen with the project area, right?
Yes. And that would be subject to your review.
There's one sentence in there, the use of native prairie grasses suitable for livestock grazing on cultivated land is acceptable and encouraged ground cover. Maybe that's the only sentence we really need there. We encourage it, and then we put a sentence in there that says the utilization of concrete or asphalt is beneath the solar panels is prohibited, and then the rest of it,
That's what we're
we stay
saying
in there.
now. That's
Yeah.
what we're saying now. Are you saying eliminate that sentence?
No, I'm saying keep that, we were talking about the use of prairie grasses
Right.
is suitable and encouraged.
Right.
Okay? Not that we're docking, not that we're, the rest of it says if you go to the sentence prior to that, we're talking about how the stormwater runoff document is going to address reseeding or other sediment control.
So the main issue here, I think that you're struggling with, is like the utilization of impervious material beneath the solar panel is prohibited, but you need to say gravel and rock is not considered impermeable.
So, no, what we're saying is, what's the definition of impervious?
Well, if you say gravel and rock is not considered to be impervious, then they can put gravel or rock down.
Yeah.
That clears it up.
Add that sentence in.
What now?
Add the gravel and rock is not considered impervious.
There you go.
Question.
So that allows them to put it down.
Yes.
Yes. But that's what they've been discussing. But it's not to say
It
that,
gives them the option. It does not, it gives them the option to either use grass or gravel.
right. And grass is recommended, but
Yes.
it still leaves the other
Leaves the
option
option
open.
for the other.
I'd rather just call it, say grass, period.
So you want to prohibit rock or gravel?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what I
But,
like.
yeah, I'm
I
just-
prefer,
Leave it as it's written.
basically, yeah. I think the benefits of having grass far outweigh, the aspects of giving somebody flexibility to put rock or gravel down.
Well, I haven't seen any numbers, but it seems practical to me that a developer or investor, why would you want to pay for 10 acres of gravel?
Yeah. At 4 inches thick.
I'm not sure that this is
A lot
a
of gravel.
legitimate question, but it is obviously a possibility. And then I think of myself living next door or in the area, I'd rather live next to a patch of native grass than something that's gravel. And, the things, there is some dust that comes off of gravel. I don't know about the runoff engineers, how they perceive, the impact of gravel versus native grass, if there's any difference or not.
There has to be some.
Seems like there'd be some.
I would move that we just leave it as it is, not make any changes to that section. Just throw that out for discussion.
Sheila, what do you prefer, rock or grass?
Paper or scissors?
Paper or scissors?
Here.
Yeah, exactly. All right, everybody all at once.
I don't know. I do see the grass as a nice thing, but then what if the conditions exist that the grass doesn't get established well, and it doesn't grow if it's sugar sandy or some situation like that where the grass won't grow well if we offered them the option of something else? What about that?
See, that's where I'm at. I like the encouraging of the grass. I want that to be first and foremost, but I want the option for the landowner or the developer to have the choice.
I like the idea of just say the utilization of impervious material beneath the solar panel is prohibited, is what we want to do. We want to make sure that all the water that's in that 10 acres doesn't rush it off somewhere. That's what we're trying to accomplish. We don't want it asphalt, we don't want it concrete. Want the
Gravel's
water-
gonna be the same thing, it just trickles around all the little rocks.
But
I think Gayla makes an excellent point. If you have if you have a brown field where there was an oil spill 50 years ago or something and nothing grows there, well, we don't want to discourage them from putting some crushed rock in, because that's better than bare soil eroding away or blowing in the dirt. So we want to give that option, I think.
Oil spill, they should remove that soil and put new sort of dirt in.
Should, could, did, you know. That's a whole nother can of worms.
But aren't we really just don't want impervious material underneath the panels? That's what we don't want.
Bottom line, we don't want any of
And
that.
why do we think we have to call rock and gravel impervious material? It's not.
I'm with agreeance.
And it's not going to get packed down
Yeah.
like a gravel parking lot or a gravel road.
And we're still encouraging a native grass cover.
Yeah.
We're not getting rid of that.
Was your an official motion?
Yes, I'll make it that way. Yes, leave it as it is.
Okay. I just
making a motion on this.
I didn't want to, you said, well, I'll move, and then it was kind of casual, and I wanted to make sure we didn't blow right on by it if you
I
want to
don't know
make
if
that
we need a
official.
motion on this, but, for discussion purposes, that's
Yep.
my feeling. If you want it as a motion, I'll make that as a motion.
Okay, well, I just didn't want to blow past it if that was,
Yeah.
that was your intent.
No.
But I think we do need one. I mean, if you want to make one, Steve, this
You want
would
a
be
motion, Kate?
be
I
the
would-
appropriate
I
time.
would hereby make a motion that we leave, what is that, paragraph, 25-107-3 unchanged.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion on that motion?
Well, yes, I'd still like to see us consider taking rock and gravel out of that one sentence. Just talk about impervious material.
What's your definition of impervious, I guess?
Well, being from the utility industry, I know that when you build a substation or you do anything like you put down rock and gravel and you put everything on it, and the water you don't have ponds of water there, it goes down into the ground.
Right.
And
This goes straight through into the ground, whereas if you have grasses and root systems and whatnot, they'll filter that water going down into the ground.
But this present sentence says we'll prohibit it, rock and gravel. And that is, water will go right on through rock and gravel. Unless you drive across it over and over and over, and there it gets packed down, and it finally becomes a roadbed. And water does not go down into the roadbed, it goes off into the borrow ditches.
It's been moved and seconded, right?
It has been.
Okay.
Yep. I'm just trying to decide whether I have any discussion points or not.
Okay, I didn't mean to
Nope,
push you.
you're fine.
I'm just making sure
Yep,
my brain was at the same point.
We're all, you're good. I'm just, you can almost hear the gears clashing inside. I'm just-
One of the things that goes through my mind and went through my mind as I was listening to the elected commissioners is we want to sell them on, we don't want them sold on what we got. We want them to be sold on what we're offering them. And I know for sure there's one that would not like us prohibiting rock and gravel.
I would say that was Commissioner Friesen, and I know that his install in Bueller has gravel underneath it. And that might be the picture in his mind, that's a very small installation. So, maybe he was not thinking of 10 acres of gravel. I don't know. The other thing that came up, and I think this is, it's an overarching issue in a lot of our conversations, maybe is, in his terms, landowner rights. We should not be telling a landowner what they can or cannot do on their own property. Well, that seems to be somewhat of a moving target, depending on what the conversation is about. But that was part of his justification for not requiring or saying you can't have rock or gravel on your property.
But I also know that in the city of Hutchinson, if you got a parking lot that the water won't go down in the ground, you got to be able to collect that and release it under controlled conditions. And the flood control cost in Hutchinson for places like the State Fair, which has a lot of asphalt, is pretty high, thousands of dollars a year. And because that's a standard principle. Let the water go into the soil and that's our objective, or at least I thought it was our objective when we didn't want any impervious material there. We wanted the 10 acres of just collection of water and draining it off in whatever direction it went, depending on the slope of the ground. We wanted to go into the ground right there.
I think Commissioner Friesen's main deal with this was he is claiming that rock and gravel is not impervious. There. You can determine differently.
What is your definition of impervious?
I don't have a definition. I say water sinks into rock and dissipates.
Doesn't let something pass through.
Yeah. So.
So is a really sticky clay soil considered impervious then?
Would be.
No, there's not. That's why they line ponds with that.
Impervious is something that not allowing fluid to pass through.
Okay.
So rock and gravel would allow fluids to pass through.
Yes.
But in this, if I'm correct in reading this, you're putting rock and gravel with concrete and asphalt.
Yeah.
And
We need to change that verbiage.
so you're not allowing rock and gravel because you're saying it's impervious like
You
concrete
could say
and asphalt.
rock, gravel, or impervious material.
Take out the word
Take out
other.
Other. Take the
That's what I was gonna
other.
say. I think
So if it said other, then it's saying that rock and gravel
Yeah,
is
well,
also
you're-
that.
We just strike that one word, and that solves that problem.
Well, unless, I could see scenarios where, maybe crushed rock might be the answer. And I think a blanket prohibition is probably more than we need to do.
I grew up around power plants and we had probably 20 acres of switch yard. There was nothing but gravel, rock, crushed rock. And why was it? So that the rain would go into the soil.
Right.
We don't want it washing away, we don't want it puddling, we don't want it creating a alley for,
Same thing why I have gravel on my driveway, 'cause I don't want to walk in mud, and that lets the water through and gives me something solid to walk on. I got 300
So-
yards out to the mailbox.
By definition, if impervious does not let the water through, then we should be okay with rock or gravel there. If rock and gravel lets water through, then we should be able to say, I'm kind of forming maybe a potential amendment, that the motion would read, the utilization of gravel or the utilization of impervious material, for example, concrete and/or asphalt beneath the solar panels is prohibited.
And we all
I mean,
agree.
define concrete and asphalt
Yes. So then you're saying rock and gravel could be?
could be placed there.
Yes.
I mean, that could be a potential amendment to the motion. If we're saying gravel or rock lets water through much, I mean, I'll agree with you, it's not the same as what grass would be.
Right.
But it still lets water
Yeah,
through.
it does, yeah, I admit that.
I would say that we need to allow that.
So what you're saying is taking out gravel?
Well, we gotta work on, we have a motion on the table that says that we accept this as written. So we have to amend that motion.
Either vote on it
It's a second.
or a new motion.
Let's just vote it.
Okay? Staff, you want to call a roll on this motion?
The motion is to leave.
To leave.
The regulation as
25,
written.
yep, 25107 dash paragraph 3 as written.
Shortfeger,
No.
Strand,
Yes.
Schaefer,
No.
Seltzer,
I have to say yes.
Macklin.
If you call my name.
I call Mr. Macklin.
Oh, no.
Martin,
No.
Gertson.
No.
Motion failed.
Okay? So
Now make your motion.
Now a new motion. Chair will entertain a new motion on that, on 25107 paragraph 3. We had discussed, I'll help you out here just a little bit. The way it could be wordsmithed, I'm just gonna blurt it out here. The utilization of impervious material, for example, concrete and/or asphalt beneath the solar panels is prohibited. And take that, make that the sentence within that paragraph.
And I would so move that, what you just quoted.
Now, we're not, yeah.
Leaving everything else is still in there, the
It's-
grass, the vegetation, all that good
Yeah,
stuff. All the rest of
we're
it.
encouraging the grass, but we're not calling out, you can use rock.
You're striking-
But you can use it if you so
Striking the
desire.
words gravel, rock, or other, and then adding, like, after impervious material, such as, the sentence
Yes.
such as concrete or
Yep,
asphalt.
that's correct. Some sort of definition there. So did you move that, Harley?
I did,
Okay.
and Steve's gonna second it.
Let's get this I don't like it, but I'll say it.
Such a swell guy.
I like grass.
Team player right there.
We're still encouraging your grass.
Thank you.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on that motion?
I need who seconded it. Was it Steve?
Me,
Steve did.
Yeah.
I directed him to.
begrudgingly.
I coerced him to.
Begrudgingly.
So was it under duress?
Grass, yeah.
Seeing no discussion, staff, you want to call a roll on this one?
Shortfeger,
Yes.
Strand,
I much prefer native grass, but I'll say yes.
Schaefer,
Yes.
Seltzer,
Yes.
Macklin,
Yes,
Martin,
Yes.
Gertson.
Yes.
Did you capture the tone of Steve's yes?
It was painful.
It will be noted in the minutes.
It'll be duly noted.
Duly noted.
Thank you.
Okay, staff, do you have what you need to go back to the county commission with their discussion, from their discussion points given to you?
I believe I do. I think that was the 5 points that they wanted further discussion on, and so, yep, I think I do. I'll get it back on one of their agendas. It won't be the next meeting, because that deadline's already passed, but hopefully it'll be the following one.
Mark, can you give us a look ahead as far as the commercial moratorium and what's down that road?
No, because we don't have any direction yet on what
Extend
they're.
what the moratorium goes till when?
The moratorium goes to July 1st, I can tell you at least that much. right now, but we don't have any direction right now to report. Right now, that's still being discussed right now.
As far
But
as residential systems, where are we at on that?
The residential I was gonna have on the agenda tonight, but because this got referred back, I pulled it off of that agenda.
Well, that's still on our agenda.
It's still
Need to create those.
It still needs to be created, and so I'm hoping to maybe put it on for April. We've got a lot of cases coming up and everything, and we can always put it on the agenda, and then you can always move it to the next one if we run out of time or whatever. But yeah, I did pull it from this agenda because of this issue.
And that's just the non-roof mounted, right?
That's the residential.
Ground
Ground mounted systems, right?
Yes.
If that's what the board decides.
You gotta decide that,
You gotta
but that's
decide.
kind of the,
This is just open
that was,
discussion.
that was our discussion before we separated it out.
Right now, there's not a moratorium on any roof mount,
Right,
but there's a moratorium on ground mount of all kinds.
but if the board wants to regulate roof, I'm not saying yes or no, but I mean, yeah. You have to determine that.
Are you getting inquiries about residential ground mounts, or, I mean, are we
Yes.
creating a problem?
Yes.
We're creating a problem.
Yes. I've had inquiries from companies across the country that are wanting to install, and right now you can't till July 1st, for right now. Or if we can get that written, more than likely, because of the publication requirements, it'll have to be extended potentially. We're already into late March, and by the time we get that review, we haven't even looked at it. We have some ideas, but it still has to be written. You still have to set a public hearing date. It still has to be published and townships and cities notified. So there's a lot of work that has to go into it, so.
We can do it.
Yeah. So.
All right, any other business be brought before this board? Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So made.
Second. Been moved and seconded to adjourn. All in favor, say aye. Aye.